Dr. Jazz.
Cool, Javon. Thanks for finding the time. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Have you on so many records, so it's good that Ann set up this one. So shout out
Okay.
to Ann. But
Um,
I want to start this talk obviously with the new record. I mean, you have it's a continuation of the previous one with Nikki Giovanni, and I've studied American poetry, so I'm always fascinated when these cooperations happen. And like, what's your story with her? And I guess obviously you were familiar with her work before. Like, I mean, she's one of the most important U.S. poets. But how did you guys hook up and the continuation of this relationship musical?
right. I met her at the University of Hartford. I invited her to come as part of the annual Black History Month celebration that the university has. And since my time there, I've been inviting different individuals to come during that time period. So she was part of that succession of art icons. And I was trying to always make a way for students, not jazz students per se, but the university, to meet with civic and iconic leaders such as Nikki, who've made a life of service, and they made themselves available for us, the American people, but specifically African Americans, striving and fighting for some sense of equity. So I invited her in that premise. And so in that way she came, and while she was there, happened to be piping, musically piped through the auditorium, excuse me, was Charlie Hayden and Hank Jones playing
Right.
a CD called Steal Away, which is a spirituals record. And she commented how much she loves spirituals and how much she just loved that collaboration of jazz and spirituals. She'd love to hear more stuff like that. She just was commenting on it. So we went and had dinner and then took her back to the hotel. And then it dawned on me, why not ask her to pick 10 spirituals for my next CD? I reached out to her. She was glad. She was very happy to support that. And so I gladly took those tracks, and that was The Gospel According to Nikki Giovanni, which that was my title, by the way. She's always consisted that she doesn't want people to think it was her title because she thinks coming from her would be arrogant. So it was my title. And then after the success of that one, she had an idea of picking some great standards that come from film, and she would add poetry to that particular CD. And so that's how we got to Javon and Nikki at the movies.
Beautiful.
I'll go to the movies.
Yeah, beautiful. Fantastic. Yeah, did you guys perform that live as well, or will you? Or
We've been doing tours. We did something in August. We did another concert somewhere else next. We're playing next week together in New Jersey, NJ Pack. We're doing as part of the Dodge Poetry Festival. Myself and Nikki, Christian McBride, and the pianist Jeremy Manasseh. We're doing a concert next Saturday.
Wow, beautiful. Yeah, fantastic. Probably not coming to Europe, right?
Well, I wish. I've been in Europe in some years, so I need to
Yeah.
reach out to some agencies and come back. It'd be good to come back to Europe specifically. Now, are you in Germany?
I'm in Slovenia, like
Slovenia?
former Yugoslavia, kind of.
Yeah, I played Belgrade some years ago.
Yeah.
Sure,
Yeah, would be nice to see you guys again back here. I mean,
absolutely.
yeah. I also wanted to ask you about the band. I mean, I know it's kind of like the Deja Vu band, and you've played with these guys for quite a long time. And what's the story with the band? Because it's swinging like crazy. I mean, it's a beautiful record.
I appreciate that. This group, we've been together for at least 10 years now. And so annually we play at the Village Vanguard every year. So that's a kind of annual residency we have there, annual engagement. And then we've been touring with this group. And so, like you say, since Deja Vu, we've been recording. So this is probably our fifth project together. There's a volume 1 and volume 2. There's a For You Deja Vu, which is part 1 and part 2. Then we did the gospel according to Nikki, Giovanni. Then there was a CD that came out called With Peter Bradley, which was from a film that I wrote the music for, original music, and we did a soundtrack with that, and then this CD. So it's been 5 CDs. So I'm very comfortable with all of the band, and they're comfortable with me. They know my style. We've really gotten a chance to grow together and learn each other as an ensemble. So it is very fun, and there's a good spirit that comes from the quartet.
How have you progressed as a band leader? I mean, you know, I listen these days a lot to your records, like going back to the Crisscross one and When Time Is Right, and to the new ones. And in your eyes, like, you know, how have you progressed as a band leader? I mean, have you always been comfortable in that role, or?
Well, I've gotten a chance to observe band leading styles from the various artists that I've worked with, whether Art Blakey. I worked with Charlie Hayden for a period of time, who was a great band leader. I've worked with Elvin Jones, Freddie Hubbard, Cedar Walden, Ron Carter, Joy Burkeen, Donald Byrd, different artists, and you start to get an understanding or some sense of how leadership is conducted. And then also, I want to be basically the kind of leader that the band knows they can trust in terms of when we travel, or try to be as specific as what I'm looking for, but be open to the direction that the band ultimately goes in, whether it's musically or even sometimes stylistically, trusting the styles of other artists that are in the band and help them mold the group and let everyone be themselves. That's the best way. And I think Art Blakey really exemplified that for me as a leader. He didn't try to tell anybody to be one particular way. From time to time, he would tell us what he didn't think we should do, but he never told us what to do. So by eliminating some things that he felt might not be the best as a performer and so forth and so on, those other things that he left open for your creativity was something I appreciated for him as a leader.
Do you remember the first gig with Art? I mean, how did you get that gig, by the way?
Well, I was going to Berkeley at the time, at the encouragement of Branford Marcellus. I knew Branford from the time I was in high school because his brother and myself, Delphio, were in a McDonald's All-American band together. And it's a band at that time. It took high school seniors, 2 from each state. I represented Colorado. Delphio represented Louisiana. And that's how I met. Delphio introduced me to Branford, who was someone I was already very much in awe of his talents and his ability. And he had just left playing with Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers. He went and started his group, and Branford was part of that group. And so Branford suggested I go to Berkeley, study with Billy Pierce. I got there, and I did get to study with Billy some, but I also got to be around and be in the company of Donald Brown, magnificent pianist, who at that time was playing with Art. And I got to spend a lot of time with Donald and at school and away from school, and he made way for me to get a chance to audition for Art's band. So Donald was really critical in that opportunity.
How was that audition like for you? I mean, you were like 21, right? Or 20?
Right. Yeah, 21. Yeah, it was a time of a lifetime. I didn't even think about how nerve-wracking it probably was. The main thing was just, for a quick story, I went to Baltimore to actually see Art and audition there and sit in. I went to Baltimore, or maybe he was playing, I went to Baltimore, but he was playing, I think, in Maryland. Wow, I'm getting this right. Yeah, maybe it was Washington, D.C. I really can't remember totally now. But I was in Baltimore with a friend of mine, Mark Gross, a great saxophonist. I was staying with his family. Then I found my way over to the club that he was in, Tacoma Park. What was the name of that club? I think it was in Tacoma Park Station. Maybe that was in Maryland. But anyway, we got there, and Art was late. The whole band was late. And so if it was a Sunday, and if they were supposed to start at 6, I think they got there at 7:30. They were extremely late. So at that time, he told Donald, said, if somebody wants to sit in, saxophonist I know, he said, no, tonight's not a good night. He has to come to New York. So a month later, which was in December, I think mid to early something December, Art was playing at a venue at that time called McHale's. So I went down there a second time. This time I was just determined to get to sit in because I didn't get to sit in going all the way from Boston to the Baltimore area. So this time I went from Boston to in college, Berkeley. I went down to New York and I sat in there. And so I got to sit in at the last piece of the night. It was rhythm changes. And then he asked me to come back, came back the next night, then played the night. And then he offered me the opportunity to be in the band.
Wow, amazing. Did you, you obviously then toured with him in Europe as well, right? And everything.
Sure. I think the first major tour we did was 4 or 5 week tour. Maybe later in that next year, we played a 2-week engagement in New York City at a place called Sweet Basil. Did a couple of concerts in America, one in Baltimore, I think, and another one. And then we went to Europe for about 4.5, 5 weeks. We went all over Switzerland. We went to Italy, and just throughout. And during later in the time, I think it was part of that first year we did go to Yugoslavia at that time. Let's go Yugoslavia. So we did go to Belgrade. There was a jazz. There used to be a festival there. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it's still going on in Belgrade.
Yeah. So that was So we went all over. With Art, we'd go to Europe 3-4 times a year because he loved playing Europe and he was that much in demand. So we'd go there maybe no minimum of 3 weeks. We never went to Europe. Very rarely we'd go for 1 week. It was always for long periods of time, and we would basically go all over Europe or tour in a bus, and not much flights. Some train, but more buses. Art liked the buses. That way too, you didn't have to worry about necessarily being anywhere on time sometimes. But we did do the van, but more so we just basically drove all over Europe.
Wow. How was that like for you? I mean, did he tell stories, or like how was he on the band stage also to you guys, the younger
How
guys?
was Art?
Yeah.
Oh, he just super supportive, very happy. Still haven't been with a band leader that is that happy for everyone else to have the success, and he just be back there. He would be back there supporting us as the drummer. In other words, it couldn't happen without him, but he was very happy just letting everyone else shine, occasionally take a solo, but his main thing was helping all these various musicians have a start to their career. So it was unbelievable. And then meeting the artists, the various artists that I would meet, and almost all of them that I met with Art eventually work with or play with later. And then obviously being with Art Blakey and meeting a little later the president of Blue Note Records, and then ultimately getting an opportunity to make my own recording opportunity with Blue Note. So all of that was created by my time with Art and having a connection to Art and the Jazz Messengers.
Sure. Yeah, this legacy. I mean, it's like with Miles, right? Everyone who played, like, it's amazing, this lineage.
Very much so.
You're one of the last guys, I think, your generation that caught that boat to be able to play with,
Yeah, I would think that I caught the tail end of that. I mean, being the last saxophones with Art Blakey, that was the end of that era. But you're right, it's not as much. Although I will say there are artists out there who have kept groups out and have been traveling and have given opportunities to young players, whether it's Wynton Marsalis or Branford Marsalis or Kenny Garrett or other artists that have been out there, Terrence Blanchard, they're out there and they're giving young people opportunity to play. So I think it's still available, but it's important for folks like myself to be able to support the young people. I think the great Papa Joe Jones told a friend of mine, Lewis Hayes, the great Lewis Hayes, that there's nothing wrong with the music that the musicians can't fix.
Yeah.
So if there's an area that may be lacking, the musicians, if they address it, things can always be changed or modified to work the way we need it to work.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah. How did you then meet? You mentioned Elvin before, and you played with the two of the greatest drummers ever. In jazz. Like, did you start playing with Elvin already while you were with Art, or like how did this transition to Elvin's band begin?
Well, no, what happened, how I first met Elvin Jones, he came and sat in with the Messengers. Then Art was kind of under the weather, and he didn't come a particular night, and he sent Elvin Jones.
Oh,
So
wow.
Elvin later came and sat in with us for a whole evening, and that's how I first met Elvin Jones. And then later, after Art passed, I had the opportunity to do my first record on Crisscross. James Williams, Gabriel Sisso, the pianist, I was talking to him about the group. He said, "Why don't you call Elvin to do this recording?" So I don't know him. He said, "Well, he came and played a night with you guys with the Messengers, so why don't you give him a call? What's the worst thing he could say?" And I called him, and he ended up saying yes. So then that's how that occurred. And then after that, having that built that relationship down the road, his wife Keiko gave me a call and asked me about joining the Jazz Machine. So that happened, but still a byproduct of him knowing me and seeing me with Art Blakey.
Art, yeah. You mentioned this Crisscross record, and how was it like for you as a band leader there? You know, having, I mean, obviously you and Christian are, I think, more or less this. Christian is younger, I think, right, McBride? A little
Right,
bit.
he's younger, but I didn't really know Christian at that
Okay.
time. He was, well, he had moved into New York, and Christian was always, as soon as he hit town, he was around and meeting people. And I think I met him. I knew he came down to see the Messengers, and then I might have met him a little bit during that time around James Williams. A little bit. It's a little foggy how we met. He was with Freddie Hubbard before I was with Freddie. I don't know if he was quite with Freddie. He might have already been with. I can't remember for sure if he was with Freddie or not. He might have been. But anyway, that's how I met Christian. James I knew because James lived in Boston when I was in Berkeley, and Elvin, again, just having reached out. So the music was just a little bit of James. I'm pretty sure he had an original. I had an original too, not really doing a lot of writing at that time. And then we did some standards of one from one of Elvin's, from his first recording as a leader, his brother, Thad Jones, wrote something called Buzz At. I think we did that. And then I did a Ron Carter piece. I think I just kind of grabbed some things to fill out the record. So again, that was my first opportunity, so gained a lot of experience from that. But there was a lot to learn, still is, sometimes about trying to put recordings together like that. So that kind of came as a hodgepodge, more so than an actual thematic understanding now of how I try to put records together thematically. That time was just kind of grabbing material to make sure we had enough to fill out a recording.
Yeah, but still, like to have your debut with Elvin. I mean, he hasn't done so many sideman gigs back then. So, but you know, he played on your first record. I think that's like, it's mind blowing. Just to think.
Very, very honored and fortunate to have had him with me again through my relationship with Art Blakey. Allowed for that, and then I would like to say we went on to forge a really good relationship, and I had the utmost respect for Elvin. In addition to being a master drummer, and I feel he was a genius, but also his intellect and his articulation as a human being off the stage. And so it was a lot to be learned from him. And he was so very pronounced and a very well-spoken and full of so much humility as a musician. And he was incredible human being.
Yeah, I think he played with Jazz Machine in Ljubljana, actually, on that TV show. I don't know if you were on that gig. I'm just trying to think now. I was like, yeah, I can't remember. I have to check. But I remember he played on a TV show with Jazz Machine. Like,
oh, he did?
Yeah, like 93 or something. I'll check.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Possible.
I wanted to ask you about the Blue Note Records album. When the time is right, you mentioned it, and how would you describe your story with the Blue Note back then? I mean, what did that mean to you as a musician and composer? And
Oh, it was a great opportunity. I met Bruce Lundvall, who was the president at that time, when annually there was a festival in Japan called Mount Fuji, the Mount Fuji Jazz Festival. So every year they would bring over incredible jazz artists who were part of that lineage of music with Blue Note. So it would be on occasion Jimmy Smith, Stanley Turrentine, Horace Silver, Tony Williams, Ron Carter, Herbie Hancock, McCoy Tyner, Joe Henderson, all these artists that were part of that. And then in addition, Art Blakey would bring his own groups. So I went over, and I don't know if I mentioned Freddie Hubbard would be there, Woody Shaw, just an immense amount of artists. So I met Mr. Lundvall at that time, and basically I just went up to him and asked him later, some years later, I'd love to do a recording. Would you be willing to give me an opportunity? And so I think at that time he thought over it, and he also said, well, there's 3 artists I'd like to have, 3 artists that he will sign, and 3 of these 3 artists will have a special guest producer. So I think Tim Hagens was one, and his producer was Joe Lovano. Who were the other 3? It was me, Kevin Hayes, and Tim Hagens. Is that right? Those are 3.
Oh, yeah, Kevin did, yeah.
Yeah, and I think Kevin Hayes, did he have John Schofield, maybe?
Yeah, he did that record with Jack and...
Yeah, and then I had
Betty Carter, right? Yeah.
Betty Carter produced my CD. So I'm pretty sure that's how that went. Either that, or was it, I can't remember for sure if it might have been a drummer. What's the drummer's name that, oh my gosh, really a great drummer that plays with Pat Metz.
Bill Stewart.
Bill Stewart, maybe
Exactly.
he did a record, and
Exactly.
and maybe Schofield did his. I can't remember now. There was 3 artists. It's terrible now. I can't remember. But anyway, Betty was my producer, and so that's how that came about. And it was a huge honor, and I was happy to actually have reached out to Betty and for Betty to agree to do it. And she was an artist who was very individual and really supported young people as well, and was really willing to help us and say things that maybe we didn't want to hear, but down the road we would appreciate. And that meant being unique, even if it means doing something that you might not think, or the audience or the critics or the media might not, or maybe even your fans might not necessarily understand it, but you have to really be as individual as you possibly can. Because, and that's something that she really took to heart, and that's something that she exemplified. And there were some things I learned in that recording which were really impactful, and it were very helpful for me from that time forward about thinking about doing something and being unique. And sometimes we fall in love with our heroes so much that it doesn't allow us to find ourselves. And I think that's what she would be helpful to a lot of artists, in particular me, in this situation, in particular me, in terms of being true to myself and trying to find out what separates Javon from any other artist.
How did you do that, or what did she tell you? I mean, how did you?
Well, for example, I think there was a track on there we did called "If Ever I Would Leave You," and so the format on it was pretty straightforward. I wanted to play an introduction, which I did on the first take. We did introduction, take a solo, play the melody, take a solo, give the piano solo, trade some eights, and take it out. And so we did the first take. We thought it was pretty good. She busted in the control room from the control booth into the studio, saying boring. And she said, let's do it all over again. And she helped me with some things. She said, Javon, when you play your introduction, don't reference the melody. Just play an introduction, then play your melody. And asked Jackie Terrison, the pianist, to maybe play in the upper parts of the piano, and Carl Allen at the time, drums, play cymbals, and maybe the bass player, Peter, play pedals, and do some different things just to try to find something different. And we did it. And actually, I didn't like the take. And she came in perfect. That's what we want to keep. So that ended up being the take that everyone knows. So things like that, just trying, and not that it was completely individual, not that it was completely done in an individual way, but the idea of just trying to see how much in the moment we could be with the talents that we have. So she was like, and also, but it's also very supportive about believing in yourself and not having excuses for any lack of success that you might have. So if things aren't going the way you want to go, you just have to work a little harder. But complaining never really helps anybody. And that's something that I got from her. And so I work hard on that rather than complain. Just work harder.
Yeah.
Complain less and work harder, which is the Art Blakey motto too. If you're successful, it's your fault. If you're not successful, that's your fault too.
Yeah.
And those are the kind of old school lessons I think they're important, as opposed to coming at it from maybe a sense of entitlement that someone owes me something, or that if I'm not successful, someone else is missing out. Or no, you just have to work a little harder and keep working on your craft, and then hopefully someone will be able to recognize that, and then not put so much of a prerequisite on what you think has to happen or the way things should happen. So once you leave the prerequisites off and just say, okay, we're going to take this from moment to moment to moment and trust the process.
Yeah, and it's so important also to have an external ear. I mean,
right.
The producer, we are sometimes so involved in what we're doing, and
right, she took it seriously. So she really was. She was a producer on all the songs. She wanted to know the styles and the keys, and she got involved in the process and wanted to make sure there was a good balance wise in terms of what we're recording, and how much was I really trying to dig inside for the presentation.
That's a great record. I listened to it today, and it's such a nice record. I mean, still after 30 years, it's really swinging, and I love the writing, and really nice record. I mean,
thank you. Well, I had a couple of friends on there. I know that Diane Reeves was willing to do it, and Kenny Garrett, who's a very close friend, was a guest on two of those, I think, 2 tracks. So
Diane on one,
a lot of fun.
Yeah. When did you decide to make your own label? And I know you did the gospel with Nikki on your own label, and how come you went also that way? I mean, because you're with Palmetto in between, but what's the story with your own label? I mean, you had Jimmy Cobb on your first record on that one, which is amazing.
The first record I did on my own label was a record called Lucky 13. It was with Les McCann. Okay. And then I did a tribute to John Coltrane.
Yeah, that one.
I'll celebrate John Coltrane. Those are on my those are on my own labels too. I just felt at that time I had been with Blue Note for a while, and then Palmetto for a while, and then I think I did one more with Smoke label. Yep. I just wanted to see what the process would be like. A lot of my friends, Branford had started his own label. Gary Bartz, great saxophonist, had told me for a long time to think about doing your own label, records and things like that. And then another good friend of mine was a mentor. His name is Bill Lee. His father is Spike Lee. Billy, the bassist, I talked about a record label called Strata East, and how that's just putting your resources up front and investing in yourself. And so at that point, I just wanted to give it a shot. And it was a good learning experience for going in the studio and recording, and then following all the other parts of the process to get the product out there. So it was a good thing. It actually didn't cost the amount of overhead that I thought it would be, and it was something that made sense. And so that's kind of, I endeavored in that way, and so I've been kind of doing it ever since. What's been good about the last 3 records we've done they've been licensed with Megaforce. There's an incredible label there, and Missy Colazzo is the president, and so I've been licensing the product with her, which allows us to have worldwide availability and distribution on every platform, which is very important, because to have a product that's not available, I mean, I want to have CDs, but people are not even really playing CDs so much anymore. So you just need to have it on platforms, whether it's iTunes or whether it's on Amazon, or I don't know what the platforms would necessarily be. In Spotify, I think So all this on all the platforms, which is most important, so that's available everywhere.
Yeah, so true. Yeah, it's changed so much since you started, right? The industry.
I'm sorry?
The industry changed so much since you started with band leading, and now it's...
I mean, it's gone from records to CDs to now I don't know what the next medium is. It seems like records are coming back. So I have CDs that some people still like, but a lot of people, I still love to play CDs, but a lot of people don't engage with CDs anymore. So you're right. It's just having it available where someone can download it immediately, just listening to it in the cloud with their computer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I love that one with Jimmy Cobb. I mean, speaking of drummers, I think you got to play with some of the best, like Louis Hayes also, you played with him and Jimmy, and incredible. Right. It's something with you and drummers, I think it's.
Well, been fortunate, and I am a fan of the drum. As you know, one of the things I think that sometimes the musician, the instrumentalist, the wind player, I'll say it like this. So even not necessarily the piano player or the bass, but sometimes the wind player is rhythm, and I think that's an important aspect to any music, and especially with jazz too, that sometimes is overlooked because a lot of it's eighth note oriented, and sometimes we lose sight of the importance of triplets or syncopation or upbeats. Yeah. And so if you really pay attention to drums, all that's in there.
Yeah, especially with these guys that you played with.
Yeah, downbeat, upbeats, everything. Yeah. You're right. So especially if you try to follow an Elvin Jones solo, it's all in there. So, and the phrases, which is most important, the way the ride symbol occurs and all the accents.
Yeah, these guys were so musical. I mean, Louis still is actually. He's still playing, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah. Javon, what is still in the schedule for you for this year? I mean, besides promoting the record, do you have some other gigs coming up or recordings or tours?
Right. I'm playing next week, actually. Like I mentioned, there's a NJPAC, New Jersey Performing Arts Center doing a concert there with Nikki Giovanni and Christian McBride and Jeremy Manacia. And then off for a couple of weeks, and then we're playing in Queens at Louis Armstrong House and Museum with Nikki. And then from there, I'm going out and playing in Phoenix, Arizona with Louis Nash, a tribute to 100 years since the birth of Max Roach. He'd have been 100. Yeah. Doing a concert with Max. Then next year, we got to start kind of, after that, we'll start to kind of back it down. But next year, got a full year of engagements in New York City, Tennessee, Boston, all over, a lot of different places starting at the beginning of the year. So, and then I'm already, can't really say what I'm doing, but I'm already working on the next project.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you that,
it's something no one has done. So I'd rather not say it recorded, but it's something that's extremely unique. And it's unique for me as well. So I think you'll be surprised to see what that project is, but I'm speaking as if it's the whole group, but I'm already in my mind starting to craft things down, and we're going to get in the studio soon and get that recorded. But it's definitely a bit of a departure.
Okay.
Yeah, right. And it's not a bit; it is a departure. So it'll be something that definitely unique.
Yeah, well, you always done that, right? The kind of surprising. I mean, I know you did the Blue Note, and then you went to the kind of funky stuff in between, with Mark and Lonnie Smith and those guys. So it's really curious what you come up with.
Well, even with Blue Note, I was always trying to expand myself. I mean, some of those records, thanks to Craig Street, the producer at that time, I know we did songs that shocked a lot of people. Frank Zappa recorded Carlos Santana way back. A lot of different Brazilian composers, Caetano Veloso, and I did Muddy Waters with Cassandra Wilson. So I was always trying to open myself up. I think there was a period of time when I was really immersed in a particular style, and I think it was not the best for me. So what I decided to do was pick different material that would make me kind of find my own way, hopefully. And it allowed me to maybe shed some of the influences I had that were maybe in a way kind of hurt my own personal creativity. So once I was able to listen to that music, it made me listen to other things, and then also hopefully over the years helped me shape myself in a way that it was more Javon, if that makes sense. But with these influences, but not so much that the influences kind of dominated me. I had to be able to. I heard Elvin Jones say one time, just kind of get out of my cocoon.
Yeah, yeah, it's so
You know.
important. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the new stuff, man. So, and I hope you come to Europe, like I said. So we can make it one day.
Yeah, I'm officially on notice to try to get my way over there. So I know it's late there. So thanks for talking with me. I see you got a lot of nice memorabilia behind you,
Oh
sweet
yeah,
basil.
yeah. I've been there like in mid '90s, like
Yeah,
a
sure.
couple of
Sonny
years ago.
Rollins poster over there. You know I love that. So
Yeah,
at
yeah,
Nuke's time, yeah. So
yeah. The classic.
yeah,
Bought,
exactly.
bought it in New York like in '97 and
Wow.
dragging
Yeah,
it everywhere since we moved, or whatever. So it's amazing.
yeah, yeah. Well, good
Yeah,
for you, man. Like I
yeah,
said,
yeah.
it's
But
nice to talk with you.
you too. Thanks so much for finding the time, and I'll send you a link when this is out, and we can share it and everything. So
Okay. All right, brother. Take care, man.
you too. Thank you.